So let's talk about loss. So as I do therapy from a biopsychosocial spiritual perspective, because all of us we are biological, we are biology. We are psychological, we have emotions, feelings, yearnings, desires, and we are social beings. That's why we are always looking for, what are you doing today? Can we catch up? Can we do coffee? We are social human beings. You say hi to your neighbor when you get out of your house. You just don't walk like it's a tree, but you don't say hi to trees, but you notice them, yeah? And we are also spiritual beings. That's why I've seen many of you coming on Sundays, every Sunday, without fail, or every other Sunday for that matter. We are spiritual beings, so you'll hear people saying, you know, I was really praying about it. He made it. He went for the interview and he passed. Because we are spiritual. You had revised with the guy, but you still prayed for him. Why? Because we are spiritual beings. So that's how I approach therapy. So now loss is what happens to us. Loss is what occurs. You're called and you're told so and so is normal. That is loss. Bereavement is now what the process you start going through after that. You start going through a space of bereavement. And bereavement is a space of stress because it starts stretching you. Stress sets in the moment you lose someone. So what are some of these things that, and this stressor, by the way, it can affect your physical health, it can affect your mental health, it can cause anxiety, it can cause depression, it can cause confusion. All those are normal when bereavement happens or occurs. So bereavement is what you go through. And loss, sometimes we look at loss just as death. Death is one of the major ones because it's rather final. But we also have other losses. We have losses of jobs. We have losses of spouses through divorce. We have losses of material things. When thieves break into your house and they take your laptop, it had all your information, it had all your data. What do? You have not been backing up. It has all your family pictures since the little one was, I don't know how old, to where they are, and you feel lost. And some losses, I need a laptop too. Don't worry, you'll get another one. But how do you explain the loss of all that data? So it's not just a laptop, it is so much more. And it's the same thing with death. When we lose someone, it's not just that uncle. Who was that uncle? Was he the one who used to change ambuzi over Christmas? Is he the one who used to call people together? So you are losing more than just that brother to your father. You're also losing the guy who brought you guys together. You're losing the guy who could encourage you. So you're losing an encourager. So you've lost a father figure, for example. He probably was more, he could talk more than your dad could. So you've lost a father figure in him. You've lost the joker of the family. So loss, when we talk about loss, it's not just I've lost my dad. It's I have lost so much more. It's not just the bringer of life to, on earth. And death can be traumatic. Death can be traumatic. It can be too shocking. That's why you hear some people receive news and they faint. They can't handle it. It's beyond what they can handle. So they would rather switch off than continue. They can't stay up. So death can be traumatic, especially shocking death. Death caused by accidents. You were with someone last week, you had tea with them, you talked, then what do you mean they are no more? That can be traumatizing. The lesser traumatic death is, for example, when someone has been sick for long, you sort of are in this space of now expecting. They might not make it, might not make it, then they go, then that's less traumatizing. But it's a loss nevertheless. And what's trauma? Trauma is anything that exceeds your resources. It totally exceeds your resources, you can't handle. That's traumatizing. So what happens when we get into loss, or especially the loss of a loved one or a dear friend? It's normal to have what we call existential questions. Why were we born? Were we born to die? Where was God? Doesn't God hear our prayers? I prayed and the person still died. why did God allow him to die and he knew that he has a 2-year-old? Such questions they happen at that point. Those are normal questions. So don't feel guilty if you think about such questions. And it's okay to actually call God for a meeting and ask him. God is our Father. And he says he's not just a father, he's also a friend. So the same way you can call God, a friend, let's do coffee, let's go shopping. Call God and ask him, I'm a bit lost here. Should I pause for the camera? Okay. And then, so it's okay to call God for a meeting. And it's okay to pray. Don't feel guilty for asking God such questions. Because those are normal questions, they come. So, now there are 2 types of people in grieving. There are what we call instrumental grievers or mourners, and then intuitive ones. So I'm going to give you the 2, then you can all tell me where you think you fall. Now there are instrumental grievers. Those ones they have thoughts, their thoughts dominate more than emotions, are more dominant, not dominate, more dominant. It doesn't mean there are no emotions, it just means they are more into their thoughts. And then their feelings are tempered. You won't find them wailing and crying and wiping tears. Then they engage intellectually with the grieving. They engage intellectually, and then their energies are channeled into activity. They're the ones, will buy a casket at so-and-so's, because there they also give the hearse, because after that they'll also pitch up the tents, because you're like, you've just lost your dad. And you're the one telling us, they're the ones organizing, uncle, where should we bury dad? And most of us go to a corner, so-and-so is not processing death. They're in denial. They're not in denial, they're just instrumental. They are feeling very sad, but they channel their energies into activity. So they are the ones texting everybody, dad has passed away, funeral is on Saturday, church is here. They're the ones going to the priest to confirm, blah, blah, all that. And then they adapt to loss. They view the loss as a challenge, not a threat. It's a challenge to be conquered or a challenge to be dealt with. No, it's not a threat. It's not something to be fearful or to run away from. It's a challenge and it needs to be conquered. Those are instrumental mourners. Then we have intuitive mourners. These ones, the emotions are more dominant than thoughts. And then grief is primarily focusing on painful feelings. They'll be crying, they'll be wailing, they'll be broken, they'll be falling. That's just the intuitive ones. And then they express a lot through tears. They're the ones you'll find in a corner just crying. And then they share feelings with others. And then when they listen to people, like the way you'll hear so-and-so talking about, Maki, my dad was so this, he could do this, they'll start crying. They pick, emotions and embody them and react. Actually, most humans, it's a blend of the 2. So it's okay if you feel like sometimes you're here and sometimes you're there. So, but then there's a gender disparity. Most women tend to be more intuitive and men more instrumental. And sometimes this sort of mourning causes conflict in couples and could cause conflict with siblings because we judge based on how we are perceiving things. Why is so-and-so not crying? Dad has died or mom has died. They're just busy. Everybody is mourning. It's just they have a different way of doing it. So sometimes there's tension that comes up when we judge how each other is dealing with the situation. And then I also want to say that grief is not limited to sadness. Being sad, lack of sadness does not mean you're not grieving or you're not bereaved. Sometimes you're full of guilt. You're wondering, could I have done more? There's regret. Should we have taken dad to this better hospital than this other one? Then there is anger. After all we did, this guy still died. And then there's yearning. I really wish they were here. That is also part of grieving. So you don't have to be sad, crying, and when you're not crying, you're wondering, am I processing? Loss has many feelings. So you can feel betrayed. This guy promised to marry me, then he dies a week before our wedding. You can really feel betrayed or frustrated. So grief is not just sadness. Sometimes when we see people who've lost people, so-and-so is not crying, are they really grieving? They're in denial. They're not in denial, they are having their own emotions, so let them be. So so all these emotions, what do we do with these emotions? Emotions are guests. So you welcome them. Some emotions are so unpleasant, we don't offer them tea, but you still let them in. So the emotion comes in. And because you're not in charge, you don't know what emotion comes when you're sad. I mean, when you're going through bereavement, it could be anger, it could be frustration, it could be regret, it could be whatever. It's a myriad of them. Or it could even be confusion, because it's a mix of everything. The same way she said, welcome the guest, an emotion should be welcomed. The guest comes in, sit with the emotion. Research shows that emotions don't last more than 10 minutes. So you don't even have to cook tea. Give them water. The nearest drink is water. Give them a cup of water. Sit with that emotion. Now, usually human beings generally don't like unpleasant emotions. You want to run away from them. Someone will kanyagia, another one wants to play football, another one wants to share. Let's talk. Let me distribute this feeling, you know? Emotions just the way to process emotions is to sit with it. And don't think that you can have pleasant emotions and then you ignore unpleasant emotions. There's nothing like that, because the part of the brain that processes emotion is one. It doesn't know pleasant and unpleasant. Emotion is emotion. Just like you cannot tell your brain, never look at color black, it's a bad color. Only look at red, pink, and yellow. There's nothing like that. The brain will receive anyway. So emotions are to be sat with. And the more you train yourself to sit even with unpleasant emotions, you're able to process all kinds of emotions. Okay? Yes, so emotions are what? They're guests. What do you do with them? You sit with them. Just learn to train yourself to sit with it, the unpleasantness, the emptiness of the loss, the confusion of the loss. One of the ways to process an emotion is to ask yourself, what am I feeling? Name it first. I'm feeling so angry. Then I'm feeling angry, okay? Where am I feeling it? Like if I ask you, when you're happy, Martin, where do you feel it? Patricia, when you're feeling sad, where do you feel it? Somewhere. Yes. Ask yourself, where am I feeling this anger? Some people feel some stiffness in their head, some the chest, you know, something that's going to the stomach, some tightness of or cold, you can feel cold in your hands, you're so angry. So, and I was saying, we are biological, we are psychological. You see, you're feeling angry, but your body is also with you. You can't separate body and mind. So, the anger, where are you feeling it? You can say your chest, your legs are shaking or whatever. Then ask yourself, so what do I need now? Do I want to shout out? Am I in a place where I can scream? What do I need? Do I need a hug? Or do I need to sit down and just journal these feelings? That is one of the best ways. Journaling is very powerful because you don't have access to people always. And sometimes unless someone really understands your situation, you stand the risk of being invalidated with your anger, because at that point it's valid. So journal. And the beauty with journaling, it's not something you're writing, then you look back. You can just write, I'm so angry about this joker. How dare he? Who does it think? Then tear that paper and throw it, because it's like vomit. That will take you even more than 10 minutes. Then you can go back to whatever you are doing. That's what it is, sitting with an emotion, processing it. First you name it, ask yourself, where is it and what do I need? Or rather, where you're feeling it and what do I need? Now, if you find yourself scrolling through Instagram and Reels and I don't know what, you are avoiding, you are kanyagiaring that feeling. Or if you find yourself now getting busy, let me clean the house, let me rearrange the house, let me do. You're trying to push away an emotion, okay? When you have a parent who has, a parent or a relative or a loved one who has dementia, and this is your mother and you have to keep introducing yourself every time you go visit them, that's a loss. Because ordinarily they would hug you, how are you, how is everything? Now they're like, umekuja, unaitwa nani? There's a loss. This is your mother physically, but she's not your mother. She's, who is she? That's called ambiguous loss. There's also loss, ambiguous loss when divorce happens. There's some level of loss that is confused because this guy is still there or this woman is still there, like you're saying. And now, but they are not your wife anymore, they are not your husband anymore, but you have children together. So they are not there. There's a loss of identity because you're not Mrs. So-and-so or husband to so-and-so, but you're still meeting. So who are you to each other moving forward? So there's a loss in that sense. Now that is one. And then, we have what we call layered grief. When you have one loss, I have a client who lost a sister in 2020, then lost a dad in 2021, and then lost a brother in 2022. And why do we say you need to process emotion? Because the body keeps score. What does that mean? You can kanyagia, you can get yourself busy in the house, or you can call friends and distract yourself. But what happens with emotions, it's good you've come back to that, is that emotions are persistent. They'll keep knocking, they're persistent and patient. They'll keep knocking, push them away. Keep knocking, you watch a movie. Keep knocking, you get busy. Eventually, they'll stop knocking, but they'll take stock in your body. Now what happens is that so many years later, you'll start having funny body aches. And you go to hospital and they keep saying, but you're okay, we are not finding anything. But you have such serious leg ache. So what happens is that emotion now starts showing up in your body. So you cannot separate body and mind. You can try to block it from your mind, but your body now takes it up. So the body takes stock. So you need to process emotion as many times as it comes. Sit with it as many times. So that's what happens. Or later, there's not these things that we keep saying, oh, it's old age. There's nothing, it's not really old age. It's a lot of unprocessed emotions. Because I don't hear Abraham having backache. And, and they say Joshua at 80 was as strong as he was when he was 40. So really, we blame a lot of, we say it's old age, but really it's a lot of unprocessed emotion in the earlier years of life. Okay. Yeah, so we're talking about layered grief. So we have layered grief is when you have loss after loss after loss. Now the thing with layered grief is there's a special kind of confusion with layered grief. Because that client of mine was wondering, I don't know who am I processing the loss of my dad? Am I processing the loss of my mom? I mean, not my mother, sorry, the sister. She was clear she was processing her brother, but she was not sure where her dad was and where her sister was. Now with layered grief, process what comes. Just like emotion. If anger knocks, sit with it. So if you wake up and all you can think about is loss one, focus on that loss. By focusing means if it's memories of your childhood, you are with them, what you did, maybe what you'd be doing now, what would they be seeing, stay there. Then, if tomorrow this other guy comes, the loss number 2, process that one. So they'll keep, the confusion sets in when you want to process your aunt first, then you go to the other loss, then you go to, there's nothing, it's not gonna work that way. So avoid wanting to have linear processes, straight lines of processing. Like today I've processed my divorce, then tomorrow I'm processing the loss of my dad, then after that, no. It's not a cute, nice, proper line. It's a jumbled up, it's a mishmash, so to say. So you just sit in that sort of confusion, that mix up, whichever way it comes. Usually the trouble comes when we try to make it straight, or we want to quickly revert back to normal. You cannot revert back to normal. You have to create a new normal with your losses. So you're experiencing, there is such a loss actually, but you experience the loss in what we call vicarious loss. For example, when you hear your mother saying, you would be having another sister behind you.
The reason why I'm asking, like you see the family, maybe you are called your mother's mother, my father's. Now you are asking, where is the name of our father? Where is he?
Yeah, so he's gone. Well, no, that one is, okay, there are other types of losses. Now, we're talking about how to process loss as an individual, but there are losses that are family losses. There are losses that are also national losses. Like when Magoha died, we all sort of felt a sense of sadness, whether we knew him or not. There was a level of loss in our, even when Kirubi died, there was huge loss, especially in the business fraternity. We all didn't meet him, but there was a level of sadness. We've lost an economic giant, so to say. So for you now, in such a case where it's a family loss, largely felt by the parents and maybe the siblings who knew that child, but for you it's just a loss of it's a future loss. I call it a future loss because it's a loss of a brother who you would have known but didn't know, or a sister for that matter. Yeah.
Like the way I asked you, there's a child who died. She was second born from me. I didn't know her.
But
Even the others don't know.
But you hear about her. Yeah.
What kind of a loss is that?
What kind of a loss is that? I really don't know that name, but it is. I would call it a family loss, but more so for your parents and maybe the siblings who knew. But it's also a loss for you because you missed out on the big sister. In that sense. So maybe the loss you'll have is through listening to stories about her. She was like this, she was like that. So you can only imagine, so how would she be now? You know, she would be my big sister, would be calling her, would be doing things together, but she's not there. Yeah.
What kind of a loss do you call it? What do you call it?
Maybe it's an ambiguous loss. It's a loss that's not a loss. It's a loss that's that you found. It's a loss you grew up with your family. And then there is also other losses. What I call it a special loss, like an ectopic or miscarriage. That's a loss. And it's a loss, and we just need to validate it as a loss. And you know, one of the major, I think it's a cultural thing, I don't know, or whether it's just our way of kanyagiering or trying to move on quickly, and we're like, you'll get another one. It's just an ectopic. Don't worry. Is mother okay? Then mother is not okay. She has lost her child. So let's not try and act like just because there's no casket and there's no funeral preparations and there's no loss. There's a huge loss. There's a whole matanga in that house. It's just that there'll be no funeral, there's no, you know, we won't be meeting there every evening for prayers, but that person actually needs those evening prayers. So when someone has an ectopic loss or a miscarriage, even if it was 1 month, just 1 month, you know, those are some of the comments we hear. 1 month, but there was somebody there. So let's not minimize or invalidate their loss. It's a huge loss. And maybe we need to allow our women to, and even the husbands, those women, to just stay in those losses and validate their loss, as opposed to telling them, you'll get another one, you know, God is still merciful. God has always been merciful. Stop, you know. Yeah, so it's not a loss, it's not any less of a death. All right. So I think we'll finish, then we ask questions at the end because of time, because I can see I have like 20 more minutes. So we are going to look at the 3 phases of mourning. And maybe what I want to say is that in death or in loss, there are no straight lines. We have written this because you have to have theories and models to support a phenomena like death, but there are no straight lines. Just like children don't walk at the same time. There are some kids who walk at 7 months, and there are some who take off at 1.5 years. So there are no straight lines in life ever. Just, it's the same with death. So there are 3 phases of mourning. There is the avoidance phase, the confrontation phase, and the accommodation phase. So it is in this, in the 3 phases. So I'll use 5 R's. It will be easier to remember that way. 5 R's in the phases of mourning. So first is to recognize the loss. Usually here there's a lot of avoidance and denial. Like you're believing, not believing, you're believing, not believing. And the reason we have denial is very healthy. I say that because sometimes you just can't take in the loss of someone. Denial helps you process slowly. It's okay to be in denial. It's okay not to accept, like, dad is dead. Dad hawezi kufa, dad hawezi. It's okay. That's a very good space to be because your mind can only take a little portion of that information. It's fine. So it's just recognizing the person is dead. And then, so recognizing the loss. The R there is recognize the loss. I've lost a laptop. I've lost a job. Like, I'm jobless. Me, I can't be jobless. What? Go through that phase. And then react to the separation. Now, reacting to the separation, this is where now emotions come up. So you feel the pain, you accept a little, you start expressing the loss, you get angry, how can this happen, why now? You start getting into existential questions, where was God? When God does not hear my prayers, you start going through. Now that's reacting to that, to the separation. Then you now, the reacting to separation, you also now start identifying the secondary losses. It's not just a father I have lost. I have lost the guy who I went to when I had problems. I've lost the guy who would help me know where to buy the right shamba. I have lost the guy who, when I was so confused or spiritually needy, he's the guy I would call and he would pray over my life. So there are so many losses that come with an individual. For example, I have lost a husband. My identity has changed. I have lost a child. Who am I? Am I an mother? Am I there's a whole loss of identity there. And if I've lost a mother, who am I? Am I motherless? And what does motherlessness mean? Does that mean I'll never eat her nice food ever? That's a secondary loss. It means I'll never get a shirt for Christmas or those gifts mothers give their children. There's a whole, it's not just this person. There's so much more. It is who they were to you. All right, so now that is a reacting to the separation. And then there's recollect and re-experience. So this is, you start recollecting and re-experiencing the deceased and the relationship you had. And now this is where you are now a bit more realistic. So dad is normal. So we may need to relocate mom because she's not feeling well. We may need to sell the family shamba to buy another shamba so that mom is near us, or we move small bro to go there. You now start becoming realistic with life. You're now, you're confronting the death. This is the phase of confrontation. You're confronting not the death, but the loss. So I'm now single. What does that mean? I may need my sister to move in with me because I need to take care of the kids. I may need to, you start becoming pragmatic with your loss. You're more realistic. You're now not, you've recognized the loss, you've reacted to the separation, and now you're recollecting and re-experiencing. And then the fourth one is relinquishing old attachments to the deceased in the old world you had. Relinquish old attachments to the deceased in that old world, the former normal world you had with that person. You relinquish old attachments to the deceased in the world that you all had together. That means now, so it's basically rearranging. So if, God forbid, let's assume this person died, whoever, it is removing that seat and now realizing that you're just this group. This one is normal. So removing the seat, but this happens now much later. And then now finally it's readjusting to the new world. You're not forgetting the old world, but now you're readjusting to the new world. When you come in, you won't find this seat. You're aware there used to be someone who used to sit there, but they are no more there. And so that is the accommodation phase. You now can have Christmas at home. It doesn't have to be a sad Christmas just because mom and dad are not there. We are now moving on. Big bro will chinja the mbuzi. Big sis will bring the salad. Kid bro will organize how the sodas will come home. You have now accepted and accommodated, and you have created your new world without these parents. Is the emptiness there? Yes. There's no one to crack all jokes. There's no one to tell you about the Mau Mau War. But now this is a new world you've created. So that is called readjusting. So the number one, just for revision, is recognizing the loss. Here there is avoidance, there is denial, etc. Then there is reacting to the separation. There is intense emotion at that stage because now you're confronting. Then there is recollecting and re-experiencing. Here you remember, you revive old memories, and this is confronting. And then you relinquish old attachments. And finally, you readjust. So the three phases are just, the confrontation stage. The avoidance phase, confrontation, and accommodation as the last one. Now, there's a group of people we tend to forget, and those are children. So I want to come to that, but I want to finish with what mourning is not, or what grieving is not. Grieving is not uniform. We don't grieve the same. So grieving is not uniform, that because we've lost mother, all of us have to be crying here. No, grieving is not. So nobody should dictate how you grieve. So own your grieving process. And number two, mourning is not deferring normalcy. You can't defer normalcy in the name of I'm grieving. It is true you're grieving, you're down, you're out, you're confused, but wake up and take a shower. Wake up and force yourself to eat a meal, half a plate at least. Drink some tea, drink some water. And try to maintain a daily routine as much as is possible. And then I want to point out what unhealthy mourning looks like. What do you think unhealthy mourning looks like? Martin? Wailing. Wailing is intuitive. We need to wail, some of us, to believe we've lost someone. Oh, he's speaking for himself? Okay. Okay. Okay, how is it unhealthy? Maybe tell us. You're clean?
I think it's harming yourself like drinking too much.
Yes, unhealthy mourning is coping in an unhealthy way. One of them would be drinking. Another one is taking sleeping pills, because when you lose someone, you are heightened. Most people suffer insomnia. That's a normal thing. Don't take a Piriton today, tomorrow. You're now coping unhealthily. You need to stay awake for you to... that is the stage you're in. It doesn't last too long. It will be like a week or two, depending on how close the person was. Then sleep starts coming back. Your body starts getting tired, so it starts sleeping. So it's okay. Your mind is heightened, and you're a bit vigilant, so you will be awake. And then, and don't watch movies the whole night. That one usually is a reel. You put a series from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. You're like this. Someone is smiling. I don't know that they are relating to it. So that is unhealthy. I'm not saying don't watch a movie. Watch, it's 2 hours. Beyond that, sit down and sit in your pain, because that's what grief is about. And then, so what would healthy mourning look like? So healthy mourning basically is practicing some level of self-care. If you used to go do your treatment every once in 2 weeks, try and go back to that. And then most people feel so guilty because now I'm not with so and so. How can I even go for a party and laugh? I know people who have stayed away from family gatherings, any form of celebration for a whole year, because there's a level of guilt. So just be aware, I'm feeling a bit guilty because I would be with my brother here. But part of mourning is actually not cutting off normalcy. Weddings will go on, birthdays will go on, celebrations of whatever sort will go on. just attend. You don't have to talk, you don't have to be all over the place. Attend, stand in your corner, just be. So this part of self-care is also not cutting off the real world. And when you feel you can't handle it, seek professional help. Or you can start by talking to someone, and if you feel it's too much, you can't handle your, there's a level of, there's a depressive state with mourning, where you just don't have energy, you are lethargic, you don't want to leave bed, you don't want to pick phone calls. That's okay. Once in a while, it's okay to go through those dark moments. But if you notice that you're doing this for a week, another week, it's been 2 months, 3 months, then it's getting serious. You're getting to the point of dysfunction, and that's unhealthy. So you don't have to pick a call today, but tomorrow text the person, say, please text back. They'll get back. But if you notice it's been 6 months and you're avoiding people, you're not even there, you need help, okay? Now we are talking about you, that mostly of what we've spoken about is you going through loss. What about when you're supporting those in-laws? Now, when you're supporting those in-laws, it's not you who has lost, but it's your dear one who has lost their dear one. We tend to visit people. We take them bread, milk, etc. We go do their dishes, and that is well done to us and our culture. Sometimes we forget the children in the family. When you visit the child. Call the child aside. Tell them, I'm so sorry. I know that your father died, or your uncle, or your auntie, or your mother, or your sibling. Acknowledge that they have lost who they have lost. Sometimes we just go and it's the mother we visit, then we tell the Toto Pole, and we go, like Martin was saying, Pole, it is just a way. Attend to them, because they feel left out, but they don't have the verbal, they don't have enough words to say, I'm feeling left out, or and then there's so much going on. We have all these meetings, there's a meeting at this time, there's a pastor, there's this, there's the other. Evening comes, and they're in a daze for a week, and then people go. And the child is confused, like, what was all this about? And this is about their dad. So involve them. Children process differently. I won't go through that. 4 years are different, 5 years, 6, 7, teenagers process differently, young adults process differently. But the idea is to give them attention. The same attention we give, the only difference is that they don't know how to ask for help. So children will tend to act out. They'll go to school and not do homework, and they start having a defiance of sorts. They're not being defiant. They just don't know how to deal with what is going on in them. They're not even aware, in essence. They can't connect the whatever they are feeling to the loss of their father. So they just, the same way you're not picking calls, they also don't do homework. And they, so let's visit them. When we visit their moms, let's visit their children. When we visit their, the parent or whoever has been left them, let's attend to the child, and let's involve the teachers in this journey. Because most of them tend to be in school. Let the teachers be aware. And for children, I recommend professional help. Because professional help tends to help them they'll do art therapy. Because children cannot talk. Therapy with an adult is easy. You'll tell me, I'm just feeling confused. A child will come and keep quiet, because a child takes time to trust another human being. So, but with a therapist, at least we know how to reach out to that child without talking. Then the talking will come later. And it's not talking like for 1 hour, it's a few words here, there, but then I'm able to pick, oh, this is what's going on. So let's attend to children. And then now, so we're talking about you who is supporting people who have lost whoever. Pick their children, take them out if you can. If they need to do, like if it's a spouse that's gone, help them with the usual. Back to school can be very overwhelming. Look for those moments that are overwhelming. Back to school moments are, so you're like, can I take you, can I offer to be your chauffeur? Where do you want to go? School uniform, and here after that, textbook center, and here after that. Just avail yourself. Reduce the burden on them. The burden is enough in their head. So if you can physically reduce the burden, do it. Then every so often, once in a while, I know we are tired ourselves, but have the kids over for an afternoon. The person can go and even sleep or do hang out, go watch football. If he has lost his wife, let the kids come over and you cook for them dinner and everything. And where someone has lost a spouse, sometimes we don't know what to do with them. Just include them in your life. Invite them for a birthday party, invite them for dinner. You do not have to say anything. That's where our culture struggles largely. We want to keep talking, then we want to keep referring. No, just talk about Ruto and whatever political shenanigans. There's enough to just keep quiet. Eat the food and chill. You have lessened their aloneness that evening. And they remember those moments. I remember one guy saying that one of the greatest gifts a friend of his gave him when he lost his wife was just visiting him and watching news with him. And he did that for a couple of months. He would just come, chat a bit about Chelsea and Liverpool, then silence, news, a bit of highlights, and the guy would go. For him, that was what being supported meant, because he lost his wife in childbirth, so he lost everything. That was what support was. So you don't have to say anything. Don't bring God. God will bring you, I don't know, another word. Let God do his thing without being introduced. So if you pray for the person on the side, but, you know, just don't avoid the temptation to feel the quietness. Sometimes the quietness is okay. Let's just be quiet, okay? Lastly, I said we are biopsychosocial spiritual beings. So 1 Thessalonians 4:13-16 says that, and now, dear brothers and sisters, we want you to know that what will happen to the believers who have died. So you will not grieve like people who have no hope. For since we believe that Jesus died and was raised to life again, we also believe that when Jesus returns, God will bring back with him the believers who have died. We tell you this directly from the Lord. We who are still living when the Lord returns will not meet him ahead of those who have died. For the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a commanding shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trumpet call of God. First, the believers who have died will rise from their graves. I'm hoping that all of us here are Christians. And sometimes death comes with hopelessness. But we are reminded that in as much as we grieve, because grieving we need to grieve, we grieve but with a level of hope. That life does not end here. Death happens, all right, but it's not the end. Because sometimes the hopelessness comes with, this is it, we are done, it's hopeless, it's over, it's, you know. There's a hope after death. And that hope is what helps us to grieve, like not those of the world. There is a hope that we shall eventually meet up, because even us guys are sojourners, we will cross over, and our hope is that we are going to join. So we can cry, we will have all those emotions, but there is hope that when we are done with this part, then there is another part that we are getting ready for. And that's where salvation comes in. I usually say it's booking your ticket to eternity. And self-will, nobody forces anyone. And so with that, I'm done.